Welcome, everyone. I'm Lexi with Moraine Native Plant Community, and today I'm going to be talking about seed exchanges, what they are, why they matter, and what to do with the seeds that you might take home with you. And I'm going to show you how to turn those tiny seeds into thriving native plants that support pollinators, birds, and biodiversity right in your own yard. So let's get started. So, first of all, what is a seed exchange? A Sagamore Native Plant Community typically hosts a seed exchange at our local library called Prairie Trails. And oftentimes you'll find these community events at libraries, at community centers, faith centers, might be at a botanic garden. But overall, these are community events where gardeners come and share seeds that they've collected or saved. And here can see some photos of the one at Prairie Trails where people have brought in containers with all of their seeds collected. Sometimes they'll bring in full dried plants and stems, and you kind of have to break them apart yourself. And all of these seeds are lined up on a table. And typically, the host will provide some paper bags or some coin little envelopes to take the seeds and put them into to take them home with you. So it's really a fun event to come and be a part of. You'll meet lots of local gardeners and people who share the same passion for native plants, or if you're new to native plants, I'm sure they'll want to talk to you about the seeds that they've gathered and their success with certain plants, and you'll learn a lot. So it's a great way to connect and also get some free seeds. So overall, it's a great way to get seeds that are local to our regions. So depending on where you are in the country, you're going to get seeds that have been grown right there. They're not shipped from somewhere else. So this is really wonderful for biodiversity and making sure that we're keeping the right genetics in the right area. So, one of the questions that we get asked quite a lot is, do I have to bring seeds to be part of a seed exchange? Because the word exchange is obviously in the title. So, you can just show up and not bring anything, especially if you're a newbie. Feel free to join these, and people will be welcoming and show you what they've got and just encourage you to collect the seeds and start growing yourselves. So, don't worry about bringing seeds to participate. So, one of the most important things if you are bringing seeds or if you're collecting from others is to make sure that those seeds are labeled. And if you're not familiar with what certain seeds look like, this is going to be critical because you want to know what you're actually going to be growing later on. So, make sure that the seeds are labeled with the species name and ideally the collection location so you know exactly where it came from. And you want to just take home some things to try and, experiment with. I like to look up the plants that I'm not familiar with. If there's new seeds there that I haven't experimented with before, look them up and see what their best growing conditions are. And you might want to do that while you're at the seed exchange so you don't take something that might grow in sandy soil when you've got clay soil. So you can also ask your gardener friends at the seed exchange to give you tips and tricks and to see what their growing condition is. And then there's just a a simple etiquette while you're there. So share modestly and take modestly. And we definitely don't want to collect seeds from private or protected land. So if you're thinking about like a forest preserve, we don't collect seeds from a forest preserve unless we're with a group that has been designated to collect those particular seeds. And we have a whole video on seed collecting. So if you check back in our YouTube collection of videos, you'll find a really great video about how to collect the seeds from certain plants and how to look for when a particular seed is ripened and ready to harvest and to collect yourself. So it's a great video to watch and get ready for your local seed exchange. So, why do local seeds matter so much? So, seeds that are collected locally are adapted to our soil, our weather, and our wildlife. And plants grown from local seed often perform better and need less care. Obviously, native plants do very well in their local conditions, and that's why we're talking about this tonight. So they also support our local pollinators, the bees, the butterflies, and the birds that have evolved with these plants. And using this local seed helps preserve regional genetics and makes our gardens part of a larger ecological network. Also, these plants are more resilient to climate extremes and local pests. So we definitely want to make sure that these are native seeds, native plants that we're collecting and gathering, and not cultivar seeds. So we want the straight species seeds when we go to a seed exchange. And just a little bit about collecting responsibly. So, we only want to collect seeds where it's permitted, our own yard, a friend's yard, or a managed restoration area with permission, and just to take a small amount of what's available. So, less than 10% of what's there. And we're going to leave the rest for wildlife and natural regeneration. We want to see those beautiful milkweed seeds blowing in the wind on their little fuzzy things that make them fly around. So definitely leave some, but take a little bit to share and to maybe try to grow yourself. And you definitely, again, want to label the species, the date, and where it was collected. And responsible collecting ensures that we don't harm the populations that we're trying to help. We want to make sure that the birds have some of those seeds throughout the winter to eat and nourish themselves. So once you collect your seeds at the seed exchange, you're going to want to make sure that they're in a paper envelope or a paper bag and to store them in a dry, dark place with no humidity. So, one of the best places to keep them is in the refrigerator. So, I keep mine in a little black box in the refrigerator and they're all labeled. I like to label each of the seed packets with a stratification code for those in case I try to do cold stratification in the refrigerator with that seed versus winter sowing. I'll know how many days cold stratification is recommended for that particular seed. So you definitely want to avoid heat and humidity wherever you store those seeds because that's what can cause mold and shorten their viability. And well-stored seeds can actually last for several years, although it's great to grow from fresh seeds. So if you have some older seeds lying around, you could maybe do something creative with them, like make seed bombs or do something experimental with them. So once we've got these fun seeds to work with, there's a couple of different options of how we can actually get them growing. So typically seed exchanges will happen in the fall or the early winter, and we can actually go ahead and just plant them outside in the ground. So whenever you direct sow outside in the ground, you're going to have the least amount of control. Maybe some critters will eat those seeds. So you just want to put them into the ground and kind of push them in just a little bit to give them a chance to get under the soil, but not too deep. And this lets nature handle everything. So some things might pop up, some things might not. You can always put a little white flag marker of where you've planted the seeds and see what your results are. So I would say this is the method with the least control, and you'll see what pops up maybe in a year or two. It could always change. There's just so many environmental factors that could affect those seeds actually germinating. So the second method that is super popular is winter sowing. And you can do winter sowing in a couple different ways. One of the most popular methods is the milk jug greenhouse. And we have a whole video on that as well. And you can also use other containers. So for winter sowing outside. So this is one of the easiest methods, and we're going to go over how to do that. And then finally, you can grow inside. So when you grow inside under grow lights, you will first cold stratify your seeds, and they all kind of have a germination stratification code that goes along with how cold they need to get or how long they need to be in that cold stratification situation for them to germinate. And then you'll grow them under the grow lights. So we'll look at a little timeline for when to get started with that. So each approach works. The key is matching the method to the seed type and your available time and just kind of your expectations. So if you're going to just do direct sowing into the ground, definitely want to do it in the late fall or the winter before the snow cover. So before that ground fully freezes, you want to put your seeds in the ground. So you want to press them in gently into the soil. Some seeds do need light to germinate, especially the really tiny ones. So something like strawberry, that would need light to germinate. And definitely mark those areas where you have sown the seeds so you can see when they come up. And just expect slower germination. This is another, this method just requires a little bit of patience. And When you grow seeds and plants in specific containers, you have more control over where they eventually go versus direct sowing, you're going to have less control over what pops up in a certain place. So here are some pictures of winter sowing in containers. Now you can use this milk jug method, or you could use some takeout containers. You could use, old pots and gardening containers. You can see there's kind of a diverse group of containers here in this slide with the snow. But the point is to just put in your soil, put your seeds in, and definitely mark these so you know what is in which container. And this is where nature is going to take care of everything. So we have kind of a controlled environment because they're in specific containers. We might put one seed type, one plant in each of those containers so we know what's what. And then the cold stratification process just happens naturally because the seeds are outside. They're getting all of the winter snow, the cold, and the moisture, and that is what those seeds are expecting is to be out in those conditions, and then they'll pop up in the spring when they're ready. So if you are going to use milk jugs, again, we have another video on this and how to even cut them open and tape them up. You want to just make sure that you've got the on the tape, you've got the label on there. And also that everything that you use for winter sowing has some drainage in it. So once we get to spring and there's moisture coming through here, you want to make sure that that water is actually coming out of the containers too. So definitely a great one to try. And if you're, growing tons and tons of plants, then this is a really low effort one to do because you just get everything ready in December, January, and then you're ready to go. And those little seedlings will start popping up in April. So a lot of fun. Now, if you're really into this and you want to have a little bit more control and maybe you want some bigger plants ready to go by the time we hit May, June, then cold stratification in the fridge is a really great thing to do. So most of the native plants, not all of them, but a lot of them need a cold period of moist chilling before they're going to sprout. So they might need 30 days, they might need 60 days, they might need 90 days. And so to do this, we take the seeds and we put them in a moist paper towel and then wrap them up in a coffee filter and put them into a Ziploc bag and leave those in the fridge for a good 4 to 8 weeks. So depending on what that cold stratification code is, that's how long we're going to leave it in the refrigerator. You can also mix the seeds with moist sand. It just depends on kind of your preferred stratification method. I typically just like to do the paper towels because I can see if there's anything going wrong. If something got moldy or started to sprout, then I want to get them out of the fridge and get them going in the trays. So you definitely want to check these, maybe every week or every 2 weeks to make sure that no mold is happening, or if they do start to sprout, then you can get them growing. So this technique works really well if you're short on outdoor space and you're really anxious to get going and you want to see how many plants you can grow. And if you really want something to do that's fun during the winter, it's really fun to see things pop up and sprout and grow when everything else is cold and not doing much outside. So this chart shows roughly when to start. Seeds that need either the 30 or the 60 days. If you need to stratify for 60 days, you're going to want to make sure those are in the fridge by January 15th. By February 15th, if they need 30 days, then you would put them in February 15th. And my usual goalpost is about March 15th to make sure everything is out of the fridge, everything that's been stratified, and I've got them planted in my little seed trays, and I'm going to start them growing under the grow lights. So this kind of just gives you a sense of, how far in advance you need to plan. And then if you have 8 weeks growing time post March 15th, you're going to have some pretty good sized plants by May 15th when most of us are out of our super cold period. So, depending on how cold the spring is, that's just kind of, we never know. But usually around May 15th to the end of May, we can get those plants outside. So starting earlier is going to give you bigger plants for your gardening season. And again, it's a really fun hobby. And we have 4 videos on this. So we have one about starting seeds inside under grow lights. And then we have 3 other videos, one about C30 plants, cool for 30, C60, cool for 60, and then germination code A plants, which they need no stratification at all. And so those could just be planted around March 15th and to start getting you growing. Echinacea purpurea or purple coneflower, one of the most popular native plants, is one of those germination code A plants, and there's lots more. So definitely check those videos out if you're interested in getting growing under the grow lights. And here's just a little picture of some 8-day-old rose milkweed seedlings, Asclepias incarnata. And again, this is just that excitement photo of, wow, look at all those things that have popped up already and I'm going to have in my garden. So you would sow the seeds in these little smaller seedling trays because you can start more seeds and they take up less space. And then once they get to a certain height, usually about 2 to 3 inches, you're going to want to transplant those seedlings into bigger grow containers. So something like a plug or a plug size where they can develop their roots and grow a bit taller. So when you're growing under these lights, you're going to want to keep this soil moist, but definitely not too soggy. And then the grow lights should be 2 to 3 inches above these little seedling trays. And they're going to need 14 to 16 hours of light per day. And then after that, after they're, much more grown, a little bit more grown out after 8 weeks, you can transplant them outdoors and you'll have tons of plants. And finally, just a few quick tips for success. So, after you've gone to your seed exchange, you've got your plan ready of what you're going to grow and how you're going to grow it. Maybe you want to take those seeds and try them 2 different ways. Maybe you want to try some winter sowing, you want to try sowing some directly outdoors, or you even want to try under grow lights. I like to try and see which method is going to be best for a certain type of plant, and it's always fun to see the differences in how they look. So again, just label everything. You want to label your seeds that are going into the refrigerator for cold stratification. You want to label all of those containers that you're putting outside for winter sowing. And you want to label or put a little flag marker where you plant your seeds with the direct sowing outside. And then for any seeds that you don't end up planting, keep those in your refrigerator in a little paper envelope and make sure those are marked. And again, put the cold stratification code on there so you can remember. So make sure you take photos. We'd love to see your photos. It's great to see your progression and kind of, what you did. And just have some patience. Some of these seeds do take longer to germinate. They could take 2 years to germinate, the ones that need a warm and then a cold and then another warm cycle. They will take 2 years to get through those cycles. And just expect variation and have fun with it. Native seeds are not uniform like annuals or like vegetables, so it's just a little bit different. But when you do see those little shoots coming out, it is just extremely rewarding. And make it a family activity. It's really fun with kids to make those milk jugs and put them outside and to talk about all of the creatures they're going to be supporting with all of these plants that they've grown. And remember that every plant helps us restore habitat and keep our ecosystems in balance. And each one of those little seeds is a result of pollination. I mean, it's really just a miracle. So, again, have fun with it. We'd love to hear in the comments what seed exchange you've attended, what you've collected, what your plans are for the next upcoming growing season, how ambitious you are. And thank you so much for joining us. The butterflies, birds, and bees, thank you too. And please visit our website at sagmoraine.org and watch the rest of our videos on YouTube here at Sag Moraine. Take care.